Hey everybody, welcome back to one of our awesome interviews that we can get done here for Black History Month. This year we are talking with Wozzy Brewster, who's in the UK. Wozzy is amazing. She's made time for us to hang out and talk. She's in the UK, in London, in provincial areas, large areas, big backgrounds, long history doing stuff in the Black entertainment and arts in London and in the UK in general. And today we're going to talk to her about what's happening over there in terms of Black industry, what's happening during COVID, what her organization, the MIDI Foundation, she has set up this really incredible organization which does really deep dive into creative management and talent development in the UK, as well as she's affiliated with the BAFA in the UK, which is also a really awesome organization that I had the opportunity to sit in some of their meetings and getting affiliated with some of those guys over there to see what can we do as far as, you know, artists and people in the entertainment industry here in the US, with linking with people that are doing similar things and having similar issues in the UK. So I want to welcome you, Wozzy.
Thank you so much.
Your background is really a lot of acronyms and a lot of, very highly decorated. So I would love for you to introduce yourself again properly, and then you can help us understand what it is that you do and what you're managing over there.
Well, first of all, Stephanie, thank you so much for inviting me to come and have this conversation. So, as you said, my name's Wozzy Brewster, and yes, I have an OBE. I'm an officer of the British Empire, and I'm also a free woman of the honorary free woman of the London Bar Revolution, which is where the MIDI Music Company is based in Deptford in Southeast London. I
Perfect.
grew up down the road from where we are located. And in this very office, I once rehearsed with Shovel from M People, who is the percussionist for M People. And I think
Nice.
about 16. And we've been on this site as the MIDI Music Company for 21 years. We moved in here in January 2021. And I founded the MIDI Music Company back in 1995. Why the MIDI Music Company? You know, when you kind of go as an officer of the British Empire with an OBE after your name, and I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. That was really, it's 20 years ago when I got my OBE from Prince Charles.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
So you were recognized very early on.
Yes.
Wow.
I only just kind of the other day I was like, oh my God, it's been 20 years. And I don't think about it. It doesn't make me. I've always been me. I come from a theatre, music, film background. I used to run the Albany Theatre in Deptford. I was the house manager. I co-founded Second Wave, which was then a young women's theatre project and encouraging young women to write, to perform. We worked with comedians like Angela Marr and the Bamera sisters, and being an actress and a singer, songwriter, lyricist. I've written a couple of plays in my very, very early days into the industry, and having a love and a passion for creativity, I realised at a young age that I was very good at organising
Mm.
stuff, you know, production managing, working behind backstage, as well as being on the stage. And I made a decision when I was around about 23, 24, that having wanted to be an actress, that I
Okay.
decided I didn't like the freelance world. But I understood it by performing in Shakespeare plays and, classics and contemporary plays. And I basically did a little bit of a U-turn and started to do more production management. And it was through that I production managed for TV programs as well as theatre projects, and also became the house manager. So I was working with live events, not only dance but music. And we at the Albany back in the 1980s, we were well known for launching the careers of artists. The industry, the UK music industry, was coming to the theatre and its live music events to discover new artists. And a very family friend of mine is Maxi Priest.
Okay.
So my mum knew his mum, and my granddad
Yeah.
down the road.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I actually did see him just about a week ago because it was a close friend's birthday, and he's also
Yeah.
a friend of Maxi's. And it was lovely that I hadn't seen Maxi for a long time. Obviously, with the pandemic, there's so many people that you have not been in touch with or seen for a little while. And I just felt this hand on my shoulder, and I looked up, and it was Maxi. And it was
Very
so
nice.
nice that I was with my sister, who he knows very well, and when she sees him, she's always sending messages. I saw Maxi, he said to say hello. But he's kind of between Jamaica, Japan, because
Okay.
obviously his career in the UK, has never really invested in reggae music in the way that,
That's interesting.
yeah, it's never really invested in reggae music. It's more indie rock pop that gets the larger scale investments. And
Got it.
I'll
Are you
tell
talking about
people.
more mainstream influence? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. So when Maxi Priest was starting, I was actually working at the Albany, and he had his first album, and kind of convinced the team at the time that we could put on a sound system night with Maxi Priest and Jashaka, and it would be fine. And I remember saying, "Look, I'll run the night. There will be no problems because
Oh,
there's
nice.
always
Okay.
that." In the UK, when it comes to black music, and young black people, black artists, historically there's always been that apprehension,
Really?
and
Okay.
yes, and especially to do with particular genres. So back then it was
Right. Yeah.
the systems, and then today it's about drill and grime music.
Right.
And we had the 696, which was the form that took and collated data on grime artists for their events,
Okay.
but that didn't go across other genres. And we've got rid of that form. There's a film actually that's been created by Horniman's Museum on their 696 project, and they've been supporting artists who do, black music, because of what that did was kill off a lot of the early careers of some of those artists in those genres, and they were
Mm.
young black emerging artists.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
it's a very much, I think, if I go back to the 80s and working with people like Maxi Priest and being that person in a position that I could say, I will run the venue and I will
Mm.
make sure that this is going to be amazing. These are going
Right.
to be people that I know.
Right.
Maxi was local, so you're going to know a lot of people who are coming in on the night. And I remember, not only did the night go off extremely well, because the Albany is the 500 capacity venue that could
Mm.
help to launch somebody's career, and you need those building
Right.
blocks,
Okay.
don't you? You kind of, maybe for here you start off as a little pub gig, you know, maybe 50
Yeah.
people in
Open
the pub,
mics.
open mics, all of that kind of stuff.
Street
And then you
battles.
have to, yeah, exactly. You have to build up
Yeah.
the venue size. And the Albany back in the day was that venue with 500 capacity that could lift your career. And his career did take off with that
Mm.
album. And being part of that, and knowing that I was around the table that could then say, why aren't we letting Maxi do his night here?
Mm.
Got a new album coming
Interesting.
out. Let's be a part of that. And obviously the rest he flew. But the problem with the UK when it comes to genres like reggae, rocksteady, ska, it's very limited investment. And he
That's
had
so
to
interesting to
really
hear.
go abroad.
We wouldn't
To,
realize that because obviously I love that you brought up the ska and the reggae and all that. I mean, I think for the American audience here, they may not be so aware how, I mean, the UK has really held it down in terms of pushing out Black culture through music. I know early days, the whole soul movement, and then the ska movement, and then some of the rock, and even then what turned into drum and bass and grime. I mean, you can look at what happened recently. These guys, Goldie and Fabio, Groove Rider, those guys, which we're huge fans, right? Been forever and ever into the Black music coming at it. But people don't consider that mainstream, do they? I guess is the challenge of the acceptance issue, where quite honestly, with some of these artists are coming out of environments, urban environments or locations that are, have systemic racism or systemic crime, systemic issues. And so it's this idea that it's like the uh-oh idea, like, if we invite, when we have these shows, their audience is going to be rowdy or going to be, difficult to maintain, or they're a lower income audience, so they're not going to buy the merchandise, the album, like, it turns into like an investment issue, right? But what I loved was recently that, they had Fabio and Groove Rider did the drum and bass set with the Outlook, the orchestra in London. And I mean, that's just mind blowing when you see stuff like that. Cleveland Watkiss, who's amazing, and also a part of BAFA. I mean, there are some of you which have been really pushing this issue, and there are some success stories, aren't there? I just think it's really interesting because we have, people who, the fan base here in the US, we wouldn't really understand, like, there's such an amazing array of Black artists that come out of the UK all the time. I don't think that we realize that there's a struggle in that area. So that's pretty interesting, because it's definitely a struggle here. I would say most people wouldn't even know, the whole thing, with grime or any of the more subgenres of things that came out of hip hop or electronic music. It's not going to even get discussed. So here, yeah, similar issue where we're looking at trying to inject other voices and other stories and alternative versions of history. Like, that's kind of our thing, and trying to use the Black story and Black experience, especially during Black History Month. That's definitely something that we are trying to do here locally as well. So appreciate that comment for sure. So what are some of your favorite history, these historical moments, and some of the bands, key figures, key movements that that you love, that kept you passionate about staying in the industry in the UK?
Well, I guess I have a lot. And obviously that Maxi Priest moment was one of those, being a part of making something happen for a Black artist
Yeah,
from
it's amazing.
South East London. And back in 1997, Shingy from the Noisettes, with her first formation of her band, Himi Make a Hi-Fi, being able to support them to grow and make sure that they get industry intelligence and understand how the business actually works. I've worked with Jazzie B. Jazzie B's a patron here at the MIDI Music Company. And
Yeah, it's amazing.
he's come down to talk to young people, as well as, growing up with Soul to Soul, being out on holiday in Malta and hearing Soul to Soul's Back to Life, and then having that opportunity, which goes back for us quite a few years now since Jazzie's been involved, to actually work with Jazzie B. He's a part of BAFA UK as well, the Black Association for Arts UK. And for him to come and DJ for a night to help launch artists, to work with people like Elizabeth Troy, to come and make a night where you can create a platform for emerging artists. And very much still supporting and working with Shingy from the Noisettes, because what she's doing is very different. And that I think has been part of the issues in the UK. That if you look at people like Beverly Knight, Shinge, when they're doing the music they are doing, if you don't have Black professionals within the labels, the publishers, the distributors, the people who understand our music and our market and our audience, then they don't know how to strategize for success.
Got it.
Shingy is a very good example of, with the Noise X project, of how the industry signs you, drops you. And that happens a lot here in the UK for Black artists, because they don't understand the market and its audience. And,
wow, still interesting.
Yes. Oh, yes. I mean, obviously, the death of George Floyd, that changed so much. And, the Pause Tuesday, all of those events in 2020, apart from the pandemic, it's changed people's perceptions. But I work for and sit on the UK Music Diversity Task Force, and we do a biannual survey and monitor the industry in terms of its employment. and what
Okay.
professionals are working behind the business, because we've got to look at, people always focus on the creative, but actually what is it's the business that surrounds the artist
That's right.
and makes all of that happen. And of course we need the band, the artist, the act, because that's the creativity, that's the soul of, you know, the music itself. But we also need everything else that goes around it. Who's going to make the videos? Who is going to be the
Right.
agent? Who's going to manage the business of the artist with the artist? And those people, unfortunately, within the industry, and we're seeing a slow movement. I think we're on about our third or fourth survey within the UK music industry
Interesting.
to monitor and see how who's working behind the business, who's making the choices, who's
Right.
head of A&R to make that decision about whether or not this black artist is someone to invest in.
Right.
And the difference, I think, is between like the US and the UK, and where obviously we're very innovative in terms of the genres
Right.
that are coming out
Yes.
of the UK.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's because of the fusions of what
Yeah.
everybody is listening to. But what we have lacked, what's limited us, and not made us perhaps as wealthy as our counterparts in
Mm.
the US, is the lack of investment in infrastructure. So
Mm.
we're on a slow growth. We're kind of behind the US in terms of building our own record labels, publishers,
Interesting.
even
Okay.
having black lawyers. Malika Sani, who used to work for Cobalt, now works for you know, Google, YouTube, and she set up as a black female lawyer here in the UK. She set up a black lawyers group. So
Interesting.
if we have black artists here who particularly want to support other black professionals, I'm able to have a list of black lawyers that they could go to and speak to and connect with, so that you what you're
Fascinating.
doing is that catch up of helping to lift black professionals across the music industry up to the same scale as their white counterparts here in the UK. There
Mm.
can be pay disparity,
Mm.
ethnic
Okay.
disparity, you know, that those things where pay and ethnicity is something that the UK industry is now recognised and is trying to monitor. We have the Black Lives in Music who are looking at particularly that area, and
Right.
what those glass ceilings are for those professionals to make as much money as everybody else is making in the business. So we are behind. We're on a path. We are on a
Mm.
path. We are seeing those shifts, and I think now that, you know, the majors here in the UK and all of the industry bodies, you know, Ivor's Academy and the Musicians Union, Association of Independent Music, Featured Artists Coalition, all of the industry bodies feeding us that data, let us know who are you employing, who's behind the decisions that even makes, you know, if we think
It's
about
brilliant.
Adele or Ed Sheeran, well, one part of the reasons that they can be on that scale is because if we listen to UK radio, who's being
Mm.
played constantly? Who's
Right. There it is.
bringing in the money from, if I hear Ed Sheeran, and you know, I've met Ed Sheeran, and I had a client recently on a New York online retreat, songwriting retreat with Luke Concannon, who created this lovely opportunity and gave our client discount to be involved with that online songwriting retreat masterclass with Ed
Mm.
Sheeran, and he
Mm.
also donated 10% of his profit to the
Yeah.
MIDI Music Company. So we really appreciate all of that love, and I think what we're seeing is our white counterparts recognizing their role in
Right.
keeping black
Right.
professionals and black music a little bit behind you guys in the US, and that's because we don't have our own money to invest. So when we think of the Dr. Dre's and all of those people out there, Pharrell's and Will I Am's, they can invest and give back and bring up and investing. But somebody like Jazzie B should be on that scale, but he's not on that scale.
Mm.
And
Okay.
that's the difference, isn't it? You know, if
Okay.
I had £10 million, I know where I'd be putting my money. And Yusuf Days, who, if you've not heard of Yusuf Days, he comes out of United Vibrations, born here at MIDI Music Company, invested in, I managed them since 2010. And at the same time, when I'm managing artists, I like to teach them about the business. I
Perfect.
want
Yeah.
you to understand the business of the business that you're in. And if I'm not your manager and somebody else is, know what they should be doing for you, know what you can ask of them, and know what you need to check financially. Have your business head on, because don't just be an artist. You can't do that anymore. An artist has got to have a very 360-degree
Yeah.
view of the business. If you think you're just going to write my songs and get on my stage and just perform, no. Understand the business that you're in and what people who are taking money from you at the end of the day, they've all got a cut in your
Mm,
creativity.
right.
Understand what they should be doing for you, with you,
So
supporting you.
what do you think is changing? You brought up several good points there. One of the things we can follow up is the pandemic and George Floyd. There's a lot of massive kind of global changes in the last year. This brought a lot of digital change, a lot of virtual activity, a lot of artists that are saying, hey, I have a lot more leverage, or I have a lot more influence on how, being an influencer, all the different social platforms that are providing opportunities for artists to maybe cut certain parts of the process out and go direct to the audience and go direct with sales. Can you talk a little bit about that virtual and digital change and how that is or is not creating opportunities for artists regarding the things you're talking about in terms of the business and all these different people taking money and understanding the structures? I mean, have the last 2 years seen an evolution in some of these structures? And do you have any advice for artists regarding that change?
Okay, so it's a big loaded question because
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, I think for black artists here who were in drill and grime music, if we think about our recent loss of Jamal Edwards,
Mm,
the founder of SBTV, and why he was in groups where people were making music, but they
yeah,
weren't
he
given the
was amazing.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and they weren't being identified. So he took his phone and he was making those videos. And the great thing about digital world is that if you've got a phone and access to the internet, computer, you can create and make products, and that's what SBTV was
Right.
about.
Hmm.
He was recognizing, Jamal was recognizing that nobody, the industry wasn't looking at them. The
Right.
industry didn't care about what they
Right.
were doing, but he
Right.
thought that they had talent, and he could create a platform where they could be that talent and showcase that talent. And he didn't just do it for young black emerging artists. I think even Ed Sheeran was on there. There's been a lot of artists who actually were on SBTV, and he gave them that platform because the business wasn't looking at them.
That's
And
again, the more established artists and even the white artists looking at his role and saying, hey, I'm going to support this, which is what you were saying earlier. So that's
well,
awesome.
and also before they were really well known. This is
Mm,
where he had. I mean, to be 31 and to have lost such a precious soul, it's extremely sad to hear that news. But the legacy that he's left behind is a platform that has always sought new talent and particularly had given an opportunity for young black artists, particularly young male black artists, and we know that through our education system here, it's young black males who fail more in British education because we don't see ourselves, they don't see themselves in the teacher cohort, and the lack of understanding of our Caribbean and African heritage.
right.
When we're educated in somewhere, my parents are from Barbados. I'm born in Southeast London, but my parents are from Barbados.
Okay.
When we're educated in the Caribbean, we don't have these problems. We don't have these issues. So why is it that a black child born in the UK has experience, and particularly young black males have bad experiences within
Mm,
their education
mm,
system? We have to have more black teachers, and we have to have people who understand our culture, because when we think of both the Caribbean and Africa, they're colourful, vibrant places.
yeah.
We come from, our DNA is colourful and vibrant. And when somebody's big and loud as a child, it's not that they're not just shouting, they're not just
Right.
being.
Loud.
We're loud and we're nature, and if you go to the Caribbean, all the houses are colourful. They're not grey. Do you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
understanding. So when we come to the business, And when we think about online and digital, it gave freedom. The internet brought a freedom to a whole cohort of new, fresh, talented, young Black entrepreneurs who have amazing ideas and were able to use your iPhone, use your computer, use that Final Cut Pro to edit, and YouTube is now available so to upload, or do you want to do it on Twitch now? So obviously during the pandemic, Twitch became
Blew up.
quite popular, and
Yeah.
TikTok. I can't really get a lot of the bands that I directly work with. They won't engage with the TikTok. They feel it's not for them. They are,
Mm.
you know, I manage a 8-piece ska reggae band, which happens to
Yeah.
be 8 white working class youth from the area
Yeah.
who actually have performed with other Black artists here, Tipper Irie from the UK, and also performed and created music with the late Toots from Toots and the Maytals.
Oh, wow.
So what we're doing here is connecting
Right.
talents
Right.
with established artists, but also getting them to broaden their listening. So if I'm a jazz artist, whether it's Fela Kuti or whether
Mm.
it's Judah Bukwana, or
Mm.
a bit of something else and something different, and also to not restrict themselves. So I make jazz music, but hey, I actually make Afrobeat jazz or future Afro jazz, and that's where United Vibrations comes from. And I mentioned Yusuf Days earlier,
Right.
who was rising, and he's rising because at the end of the day, his collection of music is broad. His
Okay.
understanding that there is a market for all types of music, and what you have to understand is when something like Afro beats, for example, comes out, there's a new market and it's a new way that you may have to market something, and that's the learning for the UK music industry. Remember, it's staunched in rock, pop, indie. It understands that it's got its separate
Mm.
market for traditional jazz, but new jazz, the Moses Boyds and Shabaka Hutchins and Nubia Garcia, what's coming out of the UK right now, they are growing and certainly defining a new path, and
Mm.
they have a much broader perspective on their creativity. So the internet and digital technology is giving us ways to do it for ourselves. And even though, as with Jamal Edwards and SBTV, you might not have had loads of investment, but what you did was you got a fan base and a
Yeah.
following that
Right.
then the majors, was it Sony who bought into his whole initiative? Then they go, oh, actually, when it's all
Creates a tipping
bubbling,
point.
yeah, absolutely. And that's what you can do, whatever part of the business that you are in. If there's no funding, there is always opportunities to get small scale investment. We have money here from things like Arts Council England, who
Mm.
invest in music, and the PRS for Music Foundation, which is basically money from royalties from the Performing Rights Society and also other investors to help and support new music, new artists. They've got a program called Power Up, which is particularly for
Okay.
Black professionals within the music industry. And that's
Nice.
a new program, another thing that came out of lockdown. It came out of the pandemic, and it came out of that Pause Tuesday, the recognition that actually for Black professionals within the business, yes, it has been tough and hard. It's not all about racist attitudes towards us.
Mm.
It's sometimes about exclusion and not being around the table for the conversations. And
Goes
in
back to
order
those
for you
roles
to have,
again.
absolutely, you have to be around the table to be, if I sit on UK Music Diversity Task Force or on the BPI's Music Export Growth Scheme, where we invest 5,000 to 50,000 in artists going international, it's about being around the table to represent those types of genres and artists who usually don't get a look in because, as I said, and I'll repeat it again, because Britain, realistically, when you're seeing all of these wonderful innovations coming out of the UK, it's through hard struggle. It's on a grassroots scale, and then it breaks some bubbles, and then you know about it. But
Mm.
in its initial stages, hard to get investment for. And this is what I think Arts Council and those people who are investing, Help Musicians UK, are re-looking at. If we take the MOBOs awards, they partnered with Help Musicians to create the first kind of Help Musicians MOBO Awards to help emerging talent.
Mm.
And we were quite blessed in that first round. 2 of our artists got investment.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's where you have some money towards your first EP, your release, to be
Right.
able to pay for that mastering. And
Right.
Sign Kid, who is a signed song artist, and he graduated from one of our music production programs. He's a Creative Industries Careers Advice Service Seekers member, and we supported him. We'll write the references. So, you know, when you say about, you know, what do these kind of titles mean? When you can write a reference for emerging talent, for a young
Mm.
person, and be able to give some history to what they've been up to and their dedication and their pursuit
Mm.
of excellence, that's where that OBE comes in. That's where your titles come in. That it's you signing that off and saying, this young person, you should look at them. They've got amazing ideas. They're innovative. They're inspirational. Please take note. And he was one of those first artists to get investment. And then we had Michelle O'Faith, who had actually been with us since she was 9 years old. And
Wow.
she won a bursary from us to study at the
Wow.
conservatoire. Now, conservatoires in the UK are not historically diverse. They have
Right.
historically been about
Not in the US either.
classical music,
Yeah.
and traditional jazz. And we, in
Absolutely.
2003, the MIDI Music Company made a partnership with the local conservatoire in Blackheath to actually send.
Very nice.
It started with 4 children a year. It went up to 6, and then we got funding from Tom's Trust to send 10 children a year and to pay for their lessons so that they can have
Wonderful.
individual tuition. And Michelle O'Faith, as an artist, is one of those young people who, in an early stage of her career, got a bursary to go to the conservatoire, went on to perform in The Lion King in the West End stage,
Very
and
nice.
went on to create her own music. And she got a MOBO Help Musicians Fund Award for
Wow.
her EP, and is growing. And it's those little steps that can make the
Right.
change. So
Right.
artists and individuals can look around, you know, whether in the UK or the US, there are pockets of money that sometimes a little
Mm.
£5,000 can make all the
Mm.
difference
Right.
to the next
Absolutely.
stage of your career for that
Mm.
investment. And all
Well,
you
with people like you who are obviously so passionate about using your skills and your leveraging that for other people, it's sort of, that's where 2050 community and my network and what we're even trying to do with talking to you guys in the UK is trying to create, an alternative system is with that same purpose, is finding these established people and people to say, what do I have in my advantage? There's not enough people willing to do that, I guess. And I think that's where, I mean, can you talk to us a little bit about BAFA and what that's about? And I know you guys are doing a symposium, and if you could explain a bit about how that works and what that's for, and maybe how that fits into all of this.
Absolutely. So you mentioned Cleveland Watkiss earlier, and in 2020, as the pandemic hit, I got a call from Jazzie B saying, look, Cleveland Watkiss is experienced loss, and he's kind of got this idea of bringing together, how do we network, how do we bring together Black professionals in the UK? And I said, okay, have a chat with Cleveland. I knew Cleveland because my colleague here is a very good friend of Cleveland's.
Right.
And he was involved in a grime project that we did with young people.
Nice.
So we had a little chat, and he told me about the idea of kind of, we're not networking enough in the UK, and sometimes they do it by divide and conquer, isn't it? Really, when you think about
Absolutely, always very historically.
another aspect, I guess, of what we're bringing to the table, that we have to remember what happened to our ancestors is in part of our DNA. For yourselves in the US, ourselves here, Caribbean,
Right.
and in Africa, that our ancestors were taken,
right,
and sold and separated and divided And if you were fairer skinned, had more, and if you were darker skinned, you're out in the field.
That's
All
right.
of these things are what we are still in trauma about.
That's right.
As
Mm-hmm.
we try to step forward. And I'm a very optimistic person. I try to stay extremely positive, but I know that in the pandemic, when he had this conversation with Cleveland about forming some kind of organization, and seeing the programs that were here on the UK TV, with Samuel L. Jackson's program on slavery, actually, we're all struggling to survive so much that sometimes we're not making those connections. And he'd been speaking to Michael Riley from Westminster University, who'd also been an artist in the industry before he was working for the university. And we had a very small meeting with my colleague here, Nixon, who's a friend of Cleveland, and James, who is also his brother, James Joseph, is a black music lawyer. He has, the rights for Nina Simone's catalogue. He's an amazing being.
Wow.
And Julian Joseph is his brother, who's the amazing jazz keyboardist. So we had, I think it was just 5 of us who had that first initial meeting to understand why we thought it was good for us to come together.
Okay.
What we wanted to focus on, and what would be the aims of an organisation. Well, I don't even think we knew it would be an organisation at the time. It was more of our network coming together.
Yeah.
And out of that was born the Black Association for Arts UK. And it was going to focus primarily on music initially. But I just said to them, look, one of the things that we do here with Seekers program is we have young people who are filmmakers, photographers, graphic designers. They help each other, dancers, actors, musicians, and we need the music industry crosses all of those sectors.
Right.
So actually, why don't we make it for arts, Black Association for Arts, around raising the profile of Black professionals in the UK, but also encouraging young emerging talent. And it was at that stage that we decided that we would actually identify young Black people to be on the board and be part of the team.
Pulling in at all the levels.
Absolutely.
Really nicely done. Is that sort of what the symposium is trying to foster?
Absolutely. So the symposium will cover dance and it will cover film. So the National Film and Television School will have free talks there. It will cover spoken word, hopefully comedy as well.
Okay.
We'll have Black Lives in Music. Roger Baptiste will be representing there. We're talking to Universal Music for their diversity task force about them representing and talking about the avenues into industry. We hope to have a lawyer to talk about copyright and intellectual property. Again, looking at that ownership, because actually it's from owning your rights that we can begin to make money, rather than giving them away, which I think historically, because of the nature of slavery, we give so much away. It's time for us to keep what we create and also maybe take some things back. Right.
So that's what I was fascinated when I sat in the meeting and heard about the symposium and read through the details that the Windrush and the slavery were kind of 2 themes happening, and I thought, wow, it's very bold. Actually, it's very bold. You guys are really, you're not cutting any corners. You're just putting the history and the issues at the forefront. Absolutely. Which I think that's brilliant. I'd love to see more of that here. I think, you're saying that we're ahead of the UK in some of these aspects, but it could very well be that you guys, especially with these type of organizations, are maybe at the forefront of having more acceptance about these conversations, because you've seen what everyone has seen what's been happening here the last couple of years, with the social tensions and the insurrection, and all this. There's been a lot of strange things happening, which we know goes back to the early roots of the things that took place between everybody, right? But there's not very good conversations happening surrounded. It's very touchy, and definitely even in the music industry, we're not seeing that. We're seeing, all the Kanye West and all these types. It's like it's very sensationalized and very odd, actually.
Mhm.
So you may actually be quite progressive in terms of having like serious acceptance towards discussions of these issues, which is why I'm super interested in staying involved and wanting other people here to know about it with the younger Black artists that we have here, and seeing if there's, the synergy that can happen to maybe you guys can help us evolve into having this conversation in a way that's accepted and in a way that people can hear it and in a way that it actually is successful and has a positive outcome instead of just the more oddities. We don't need,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not interested in the oddities, the social oddities that are coming out of it on our ends. We would love to just see more performances, more collaborations, more, people making money, people,
Absolutely.
just the positive growth, the positive outcomes of those things. So I would really look forward to, doing future interviews and future dialogue, and definitely going to be trying to help promote the symposium and some of the other projects that BAFA is working on and the things that MIDI is doing. I think you have an outstanding background as a voice of somebody who can provide some type of structure and mentoring to people that are struggling through. I think it's really a lot of change for a lot of people across all the future of work and future of society and how things, what do these changes look like? I think we're all looking for people who can provide some insight and some guidance. So I think you might be one of those people. So I appreciate you
Thank
spending
you.
some time with us talking about these things. Is there anything that you want to plug or
Well, I
some
think
last few
picking
minutes
up
of
on what you're
advice?
saying about change, what we have to remember is, I don't know, I'm a light healer. I'm a light being in the sense I know my purpose. My purpose is to support young people. That's why I'm here on this earth. I know that it's all about creativity for me, and I know that I love music with a passion. And whether it's singing or listening, absorbing, feeling, hearing, dancing to music. I'm a club dancer. I love
Oh
that.
yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'm an old school raver.
Oh,
So
me too, me too.
it's all about that for me. And when we talk about change, we're in the golden age. The age of Aquarius. There's a big, massive consciousness shift. It's been
Mm,
going on for 2 years prior to this
mm,
moment till now. As we
okay,
came into 2000, that shift in thinking. More people are doing yoga, more people are meditating, and certainly
absolutely
the
true.
pandemic made people reflect on what is important in one's life. And I think that when we're looking at the trends of this independence and what we're trying to do with the BAFA UK symposium, be seen, and we call it the reason, be seen and be heard, because sometimes we're seen but we're never heard as Black people. And this conversation to range it across music and arts and all of the creative sector, as well as to have possibly two talks, one from hopefully from Malik Al Nasir, who is actually curating an exhibition about slavery following his ancestors, and it's a very long term project. It's going to
Mm,
take kind of 6 to 8
interesting.
years for this to come into fruition, but he's working with museums. And when we think about our local museum, Horniman's Museum, I remember just before the pandemic meeting with the Horniman and talking about what are they going to do about the pieces of artifacts that they have that actually don't belong to them, because
Mm,
we know that so many things were taken rather than
right,
given.
pretty much
And
everything.
how are they going to kind of do
Yeah.
that reparation of our heritage, our actual physical valuable
Mm,
heritage.
mm,
And 696 was the project that they came up with, associated to music and what was happening with the law here in the UK around kind of urban music events and taking people's data and addresses, but not doing it to a pop concert. And Makeda was very much a part of getting rid of that piece of law to stop. Because if we think about
mm,
artists like So Solid Crew, that was broken up because of all of this. People's fear of Black people when they're having a good time and not really realizing that actually we're outgoing. It's not that we're going to kill anybody. We might be a little bit louder than the stiff upper British lip. And when you go to the Caribbean or Africa, you see the police officers walking by as they use them making loads of noise. It's not a problem. It's not seen as trouble.
Right.
So we want to
Right.
incorporate that
Interesting.
conversation of him looking back through that history. And
Yeah.
that's what Symposium is about, having the established professionals be profiled. So the majority of our speakers will be Black professionals. That's a rarity, even here, to actually go to a
Yeah.
conference or a symposium and actually it's the other way around. It's
Right.
90% Black and 10% white. And that's what
Right.
change we want to see. But we want
Nice.
to encourage young people to come and network with those professionals,
Right.
and to network and connect so that we get the intergenerational level of professional talent all the way along, but
Love
also
that.
to open the doors to understanding the trends. And
That's
the other
awesome.
side is, what people should know is, at the University of Westminster, where Michael Riley is, Michael is working on a project, the history of Black British music, with the university and with the British Library. And that project is going to, again, it's going to be over a few years, but they're looking for young researchers, they're looking for people to come and curate that project, because
Okay.
it's never been done before. There are small projects. We've been part of a sound system project that was looking at the history of sound systems in the UK, and we've been part of another project, but this is like Black British music. And there is such a thing as Black British music.
Right.
You talk about
Yeah.
people like Maxi Priest and all of those, Dennis Boville, Giles Shaka Sound System, Jazzie B. This is Black British music. And all of the new jazz cohort like Yusuf Days and Shabaka Hutchins and Dubai Garcia and Moses Boys, and there's so many of them. And we're very blessed here at MIDI Music.
Yeah.
We're right in the centre of this.
Yes.
It has always been a creative hub. Just historically, it's 400 years history of
Yes.
migrants and refugee
Right.
communities, and it was the shipping dock back in the days of Henry VIII. So it's got this DNA of a very diverse melting pot of people, Indo-Chinese, Indian. It's got this real cultural mix, and therefore, I think one of the things that you can learn about when we think about areas is actually, it's amazing when an area has a cultural mix like Deptford. It's been historically known as a very creative place from the 17th century and back.
Right.
So poets, Christopher Marlowe, and playwrights, all in this area, this melting pot, these stories that come up. And the symposium is one way of doing that.
That's awesome.
It's another way to also start those. They can be complex and difficult conversations, but we have got Black and white professionals who want to help us from industry to make this happen. We've got the venue is being given to us free at the Albany, so it's literally just across the road from where we're based at the MIDI Music Company, and they're giving us the theatre, the space, and we are celebrating here in Lewisham. We are the Borough of Culture for 2022.
Oh,
yeah, which
perfect.
is amazing. That's from the Mayor of London.
I wasn't aware. Interesting.
So it means that this inaugural first ever Black art,
it's meant to be,
will be in part of that. And so they will help us to raise the profile of the symposium, and for us to have this opportunity to start these conversations on a level of respect and also of identifying and letting people hear what our struggle is, and actually what we really need to break out of the box.
I love it, especially because, so where we are, Virginia Beach, this location is actually not very far from where the guys from England who started they came here. Basically, it's probably about a half an hour away. Their settlement started here, and then the port was also, it was the slave port, which came, so this area is like the oldest history of where some of that stuff started. It's pretty heavy, actually. I mean, it's just so part of the culture here in terms of like the underlying things. And with some of the things that Pharrell wants to do in the area, and there's such a rich history of music and arts here. I think what you guys are doing and how you're doing it could really be an interesting model of things for us to look at here, actually. And it's about the teamwork and the collaboration and pulling those, you're really pulling together every level of the industry from the top down to the actual artist, and then getting that history up. I think it's really sounds amazing. And so I'm going to try to keep track of that movement as you guys move forward, for sure.
Please do. I mean, I think because obviously as director of the MIDI Music Company and my board are on board, we have a lawyer for a chair, and we've got somebody who's Spotify and a PR for the music industry. They're all on board in the sense that this is somebody who's a young Black girl who grew up here. I've worked at Stax Music Academy. We've done projects with them in Memphis. I've worked in Italy. I've worked in Lithuania, Mauritius. We have a partner project there, Pentacruise, who are trying to develop a project like this in Mauritius. It's about just giving people, you can create your own. If I give you a little framework, you can create what you need in your area.
That's
what
right.
you need.
That's right.
It's to me, if you bring together different aspects in the same room and find that synergy and see if you all have the same vision,
right,
and the same passion, it's a level of energy that's required to sustain ourselves. Because if you don't have that level of energy, MIDI Music Company, we're 27 years old. I was pregnant when I set up the MIDI Music Company.
Yeah, wow.
My son is actually in the US.
So you're a little crazy. Yeah, ex-raver though, so you already put it out there. Yeah, a little crazy.
But my son is in Oklahoma. He's
really?
Yeah, he's football.
Oh,
So he's studying at Southwestern Christian University, and he's doing his sports management degree. And where I'm working for a charity as a single mother, I'm giving my all to support my son to have his sports management degree. He's a soccer coach. He's an amazing being, and I haven't seen him since December 2019.
Oh yeah, same. Yeah.
You kind of want to go, I love you. This is great, the virtual, but touching.
No, it's just terrible.
I'm a feeling person. I've got to feel the energy. So that if what you do is for the best of both yourself and others, and you're doing it with all your passion and your love, the universe supports me.
That's
okay.
Let's all take that on for today. That's awesome. That's a really great parting words from Ms. Wozzy Brewster.
It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Madame. I really love it. I think we'll close here and promise everyone that we are going to bring Miss Brewster and some of maybe your other colleagues working in BAFA to really share some more insights on this process and how, Black industry in the US and Black industry in the UK can maybe team up and enhance this awesome movement that you guys have going.
Absolutely.
So thanks for making time for talking to us, and thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be bringing some other really fantastic people on again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.